Go check it out. I said I wasn't going to say that again. I don't know what I'm doing, honestly. Okay. Fast forward to as I got older, I realized I sucked and I needed to not pursue that ever again. But full disclaimer, I am not under any NDA, so I am truly at full liberty to talk about this. And I'm not in a position to really blast them yet, but don't worry, I am keeping all that shit in mind, okay? My time is coming. Welcome to Unshut, a place where if at any point you feel like you need to shut the f*** up, don't. It is Thanksgiving week, and we are back with another solo episode. So thank you so much for joining me on another amazing week. I am super grateful for these weekly episodes I get to look forward to. And something recently I talked about with one of my guests was how you know you really love something when you know you're not the best at it, but you still pick it up and you're excited to do it all over again. This is how I feel about podcasting and conducting interviews and doing what it is that I am doing. I don't necessarily think that I am the best, but I know that I enjoy it and look forward to it so much. Now, obviously, there are days where I just don't feel like doing it and I procrastinate, right? Today is Wednesday and I'm dropping this solo episode this coming Monday. So I am procrastinating a little bit, but that's also the beauty and the freedom of being the only host on the show. I don't have to be on a set schedule. I get to just kind of freestyle it and wing it as I go and do it however it is that I feel like doing it. And if you're also wondering why I'm a little extra tan today, it's because I just got back from the beach, so the brown is browning a little extra on my skin today, okay? So to start off this solo episode, I want to recap just a little bit with you guys. It has been 14 weeks since my last solo episode. Something that I have had a very difficult time grasping lately is the fact that each guest covers a week, right? Obviously, I drop them every week, every Monday. Something that has been really difficult to grasp is the fact that all it takes is 4 guests and my month is gone. And I've been working on kind of slowing down the pace a little bit because I do want to do something a little bit different with guests. And if you haven't seen, I have been doing some performances on some episodes, just always kind of, trying different things and trying different approaches so that the show doesn't stay pretty flat, right? It's kind of my way of experimenting with my creativity and giving different things a go. And so something that I have come to terms with recently is that as the show progresses, as I get more viewership and my streaming numbers are continuing to rise and I'm adding more countries, it is a little bit easier to pitch the show to guests. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not putting in a fuck ton of work to it because it's still very difficult and it's obviously a very lengthy process. I don't just email someone and then boom, they respond, we record. It sometimes takes weeks. So it does take a lot of planning ahead. However, now that I am able to kind of show stats a little bit more confidently, it's become a little bit easier to get guests on board. And that means that my weeks go by so fast. So before I know it, it's been 14 weeks since I've dropped a solo episode and I've had so much I've wanted to say and continue to share, which brings me to my Thursday weekly quickie episodes. I wanted to kind of figure out a way to stay in touch with everyone after an episode drops. I didn't want it to be so close to interrupting my Monday's episode, but I wanted to kind of come in a little bit and check in with my listeners and give you guys something outside of that episode to kind of listen to. And so far, the idea has worked. I feel like I've been able to kind of get off subject a little bit without music. And once again, it's just my way of trying something new to keep things fresh for everyone so that you guys don't get bored and stop streaming my shit and then leave me hanging and then I'm left without a show. So thank you so much for continuing to grow with me and trying something new. I really do appreciate it. And some of you guys will never truly ever know just how much that support means because when it does get tough out there, it is really easy to get into the mentality of why am I doing this? Should I keep doing this? So you guys keep me pushing. You guys are so motivating for a creative like me who has truly always been betting on himself from the very beginning. Fresh out of high school, I have been pursuing these creative passions. And so this is no different than choreography and anything else that I've explored in my adult life. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it with me. I want to recap some of the guests that I've had. And again, it's been 14 of them, so it's just crazy. But the last time I dropped a solo episode, my next guest was Olin. And I cannot brag enough about this guy because I absolutely adore him. I loved his voice. He, for the first time, made me feel like I was actually on a podcast show. It was the audio, it was so crisp, it was the way he spoke, and to this day, it is my favorite episode on How a Title Got Its Title. If you guys don't remember, it's called The Scenic Route, whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it. It's something I struggled with on the episode, but I absolutely loved talking about the positives about being a late bloomer, especially in this creative world that we are in. So one of my favorite episodes and my favorite titles to this date is definitely the one with Olin. So if you haven't checked it out, go give it a stream and go listen to his music. I love his writing. I love his sound. I love his voice. And yes, that clip of him singing the script totally had me in tears.
Policeman says I know you can't stay here. I said there's someone I'm waiting for. It's a day, a month, a year. Gotta stand my ground even if it rains, snows. If she changes her mind, this is the first place she will go. Cause if one day you wake up and find that you're missing me, and your heart starts to wonder where on this earth I could be, thinking maybe you come back here to the place that we meet. Could you see me waiting for you on the corner of the street? So I'm not moving, I'm not moving, oh.
Another favorite of mine was Lisa Crawley. The storytelling on this episode was absolutely amazing. I love that we got to share so many different stories, and what I loved about this episode was just that. It felt like an episode where all we did was tell stories. Yes, there were some questions, but I felt like every question led to a very interesting story, and that is what made that episode with Lisa Crawley so special to me. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys to go stream them if you haven't too. I'm not going to repeat that after every guest. So with every guest that I mention, if you haven't streamed it, go check it out. The following guest was Nicolina, and obviously adored her. We got along right off the bat, and it was such a refreshing approach to how I do interviews, because with her, I didn't do a lot of prepping. I kept it very spontaneous, and my favorite part about this episode was the fact that we did not talk about American Idol. So a lot of listeners who had not listened to her music before, they didn't know that Nicolina was on American Idol, and she actually made history on American Idol. She was the first Canadian to make it as far as she did on American Idol, and that is something that management did give me a heads up on and said, hey, we would love for you to talk about American Idol. However, we don't want to make the premise of the episode all surrounding American Idol. You know, she had worked really hard to grow her own social media followers. Her viewership has been amazing. Her streaming numbers really do come from the fan bases she generated prior to going on to American Idol. Of course, American Idol helped, but the point was we didn't want to make the episode about just American Idol. Little did management know that that was something I was not planning on covering anyway. Because of the fact that she had been on what some of us would call reality TV, I didn't want to make the episode surrounding something she had always talked about. So in my notes, I made it a point before I even spoke to management, and I reached out to her to make it a point to not talk about American Idol for that reason, especially when after I confirmed the episode with her, I had noticed that it was something that was brought up on every interview. And if you haven't picked up on it yet, the premise of my show has really taken a turn in asking guests questions they've never been asked before. So this was a really good way to also showcase that and not bring up the same old shit that my guests always talk about, which there's nothing wrong with that. However, I thought it was a great idea, and I do think that it kept the episode fresh because we got to know a little bit more about her and not about her previous journeys in music. So it was a great call on my end. Kudos to me, just kidding. But it is something I am extremely proud of. Following Nicolina was the one and only Jake Jones. Such a fun episode, and he and I just vibed the entire time. I could feel the energy through the screen. It was such a refreshing episode. And one thing I will say about this episode with Jake Jones, okay, is that when I uploaded the episode, I used a clip of Jessica Simpson. If you haven't listened to it, go and do so, okay? I'm not going to repeat myself after every guest, but just so that you have context, go and check it out, okay? I added Jessica Simpson music to the episode, which means that it was copyrighted when I uploaded. On YouTube, it was flagged in Russia. I got a notification that the episode would not air in Russia due to the copyrights of Jessica Simpson's music and the label she was with when she recorded that song. The funny kicker about that is that, of course, I was like, okay, well, it's Russia. I don't think anyone in Russia is even going to listen to me anyway. Well, then fast forward to after the episode aired, I ended up getting Russia on streaming platforms. And so it made it such a big, funny moment for me personally. I didn't get to talk about this on social media or anything, but once again, this is why I look forward to these solo episodes, because I get to share just a little bit extra on the journey and the in-between episodes. And this was definitely one of them. It was so hilarious how I got told, no, this episode will not air in Russia. And I was like, okay, whatever. Fast forward, it aired in Russia on streaming platforms, and I got that country as one of the 25 that is currently under my belt right now. So really cool moment. Shout out to Russia, whoever listened to it or whichever episode you listened to. Thank you so much. And I wish I could say it in Russian, but I don't know any Russian. So following Jake Jones was 7 Sins, and he was my first returning guest. And you guys already know for so many different reasons why this guy is so incredibly special to me. I do remember being extremely nervous about this episode because I wasn't sure how my audience for the first time was going to respond to having a returning guest. Little did I know that the streaming numbers were not going to suck, so I thought that was the most exciting part of it all. And then if one returning guest wasn't enough, Morgan Keller followed the next week, and this was another big full circle moment for me because when I first had her on, seeing as she was my first musical guest on the show, I remember very vividly manifesting out loud and talking about how I had been watching episodes of like the Kelly Clarkson Show or Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel and all these talk shows that had returning guests on their show. And I always thought it was so cool how they got to revisit the last time that they were there. And so this was a full circle for me because I remember very vividly being like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for that to be me. I can't wait to one day have a returning guest and be able to talk about our first interaction together. And sure as shit, another returning guest whose streaming numbers went amazing on my platform. And it was so cool to see how, one, the laughs on this episode were just incredible and some of my favorites. But two, I just absolutely loved that it had been received as positive as it was because I was nervous about this, like I said. But it's just such a cool vibe. It's such a cool feeling that I have guests that can now return and we can kind of revisit where we were at that point in our lives when we filmed. And once again, I loved how this episode got its title, Rookie Mistakes, because we did get to talk about all the rookie mistakes I made with her being my first guest. And the funny kicker on this episode was that on that episode, I made another rookie mistake because I didn't charge my fucking laptop. So these are the full circle moments I live for, and I think they make great storytelling. And this is how I know that one day my bigger story, my journey, will tell a much bigger and better story than what I can imagine telling today. So I take the little wins where I can because I know they are going to add up and eventually tell a much bigger story. The following week was with the home team, and all I can say about this is that they are the perfect example as to why I get so pissed when certain guests act like they're high and mighty and have a one-up on me because they have social media followers. I loved the support I got from their label, but also on their Instagram page, which is ran by Dan, who was on the episode. And I truly appreciate that because they didn't have to. Something that to this day I constantly remind myself is whenever I get an inquiry from a publicist and I actually do end up liking their music, I do take them on as guests on my show. However, I do set a little bit more of clear boundaries because they asked to come onto my platform. But something that I am very open about is if I invite you on, I have zero expectations, right? I invited you on because I believe in what you do and you're doing me a solid by accepting my invite. So there's definitely wins and takes here and there that are a little bit different with every guest that I've had. But this was one of them where I was like, you know what? Even if they fucking ghost me, I don't care. Their music is so sick. They're popping right now. They're killing it on the Billboard charts. They're killing it on tour. So really, it's a bigger win for me than vice versa. And of course, they still went ahead and promoted the episode. It got a fuck ton of streams on my channel. And so this is one of the perfect examples as to why I do not tolerate guests being assholes after they come on my show and then they act like they're high and mighty or too good to promote the episode, but yet they came onto my platform and asked to be on my platform, and yet they kind of disappear on me. So special shout out to the home team because they didn't have to. They're big, they're popping, they're busy, and yet they showed so much support. And to the artists who think that they're protecting social media numbers numbers, right? They're too good to like give people shout outs. I just want to say this. When it comes to followers and when it comes to viewerships, more than likely the big guests that I have had that share the episodes and promote, I'm not gaining any of their followers. So you're not protecting anyone by thinking you're too good to shout out an episode or someone that you collaborate with because of followers or for whatever reason it is that you don't. You're not protecting anyone from it. I've had other artists with big social media followers who, Nicolina is one of them. She'll post a video and immediately within 5 minutes, she's got like 10,000 views on it. They shared my episode. They shouted me out and my social media followers did not increase. So again, you're not protecting anyone by simply supporting someone who supported you. So definitely keep that in mind. The next episode was absolutely insane. I was at home watching Hulu's Playground, which is a show that I believe Megan Thee Stallion produces, and it's about dancers and choreography, and I was just watching it, and there was a guy that caught my eye who I had never really done any research on, and his name was Nick Baga. And of course, after looking him up, it wasn't just the dreamy eyes, it was absolutely his message, the positivity that he was sharing on social media and across his platforms that really made me shoot my shot with him. And so fast forward to booking an interview with Nick Baga was a huge win for me. Fun fact, we also found out that we do have mutual friends in the choreography and dance industry, which I thought was really cool. We didn't touch on that on the episode. However, a huge coincidence happened, which I think once again tells such an amazing story. And a big cool moment that happened on this episode was we talked about on his 40th, him being at the VMAs performing with Chaperone for the 40th anniversary of MTV's Music Awards. Well, without planning, he and I had actually rescheduled quite a few times. He was traveling, I was traveling. It was just really difficult to set a time. So we had actually rescheduled multiple times. And coincidentally, the episode ended up being the 40th episode on my season 2 catalog. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So for any of you who look into numerology every now and then, I'm not really big on it, but I do always look up why certain numbers do stand out to me. And sometimes reading on them, I do love it. And this was definitely one of them. I went and did some research on what the number 40 meant. And I really do think it's a very clever way how the universe likes to send little messages here and there to either let you know, hey, you're on the right track, or whatever it is that the universe is trying to tell you. You can read into it however you want to. However, I thought this was such a positive turning point for me. It wasn't planned. There's no way we could have planned it. And I actually ended up sending him a message like, oh my gosh, I just uploaded and guess what? I looked at the numbers and this happens to air on the 40th episode. So such a fun moment that I now get to share with him forever and ever. So absolutely love that. Following Nick Baga was the one and only Charlotte Martin, and this was a very special episode for me because it was the first time that I had asked a guest to do a performance on the show. I came up with this idea and I texted her manager and said, hey, do you think it would be a good idea for her to do a cover of this song for me? I think it would play great, blah, 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 blah. We kind of brainstormed on it and they loved the idea, and I appreciate it so much because if you don't follow Charlotte Martin on social media, then you don't know just truly how busy this woman is. She juggles so much between motherhood, between her business, between vocal lessons, between recording an album, which is her 19th studio album that's coming out in 2025. And on top of that, she's producing, she's doing so much. So for her to not only do a part 2 with me, but to also do a performance that was exclusively for the show first before they put it on their platforms, etc., it just meant the absolute world for me. And this sparked another idea when it came to the Sean O'Reilly episode, which we'll talk about a little bit later, how he also came about doing a performance with a song that I requested. So this just makes it so incredibly special, and to have her as a returning guest just completely meant the world to me, because if you would have told me 14 plus years ago when I first discovered her music that I would be interacting with her, that I would be collaborating with her, I wouldn't believe you. I would just be like, there's no way, it's impossible. And yet here I am collaborating with someone who I looked up to from a very young early age. And if you don't remember from some of my other episodes, I do talk about my songwriting. And so I did have those aspirations when I was young to be a songwriter. And it's the reason why I was, one, so obsessed with music when I was younger, but why she as an artist stood out to me when I was younger. It was for that reason. It was the songwriting. And she was one of those artists back then that inspired me to write my own music. Now, I'm I'm not a singer and I never wanted to be a singer, but I did have this idea that I would one day go and become a songwriter. Fast forward to as I got older, I realized I sucked and I needed to not pursue that ever again. However, it does also tie into why I am so obsessed with music today. And fun fact, I did submit a song I wrote dedicated to my mother when I was younger to this huge competition in New York City when I was like 14 years old or something. And actually, I may have been a lot younger than that, maybe 11 or 12. I don't remember exactly. But I actually ended up winning an award and I was asked to fly out to New York City and to go and do this like event for writers, etc., of kids that were submitting songs and poetry. I don't remember too much about it because obviously back then, due to financial circumstances, there was just no way I was going to be able to do that. So this is just another full circle moment for me where because of having some losses when I was younger in the creative world, I feel like I'm kind of making up for those losses now. I'm catching wins left and right. And of course, wins will always come with losses, but it's just a really good way to give perspective that full circle moments are truly up to us when we take action, when we don't take no for an answer, and when we don't allow our past circumstances to dictate where it is we're going to go in a positive direction. Following Charlotte Martin was Alex Irish, and obviously another full circle because I put the bug in her ear at an event to come and be a guest on my show. And of course, listen, you guys, it's no secret, I get ghosted so fucking much. Artists, bands, they'll all confirm episodes with me, and after they confirm, they just never respond. They completely leave me hanging dry. It does happen a lot more than you think, and I'm not in a position to really blast them yet, but don't worry, I am keeping all that shit in mind, okay? My time is coming. I will say that I loved this episode with her so much, and one of the things that stands out to me the most about this episode with her is the fact that she paid me a compliment about asking all the right questions, and I don't think she knew or anyone knows just how much that means to me because I have openly talked about why I'm so intuitive with the questions I come up with and how those questions typically do become the big hits of the episode. And so that just meant a lot to me. It was very validating that someone took notice of like, hey, it's not luck, you're just asking the right questions, because I do put my heart and soul into the questions I ask my guests. So that was a big special moment with me on that episode. Something I want to share about my next guest, which was Umasuma or Timo Ellis. You noticed that I did say on the episode I had a story I was going to share with him off record. I didn't think I would want to talk about it, but I just think it makes a really cool story, and I think this is why I want to do solo episodes, to share these stories with you guys, because I do think that they're inspiring and they're just filled with magic and things you just cannot explain, right? Well, something really cool that happened with Timo was a few weeks before I even got to book him for an interview, I had came across one of his videos on Instagram. I immediately thought, oh my gosh, this guy is so unique. I've got to get in touch with him. But at the time, I had about 6 to 8 episodes scheduled ready to air. So I didn't want to write and make him wait over a month to record and then a couple of more weeks for it to air. And so I just realized I would have had to have asked him to wait so many weeks before we could even air. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So I saved the post, okay? Saved it, moved on, and I logged it on my phone to go back and revisit it later. But I noticed immediately on his page, which was the Umasuma page, he had no emails linked to his page. So I just didn't put that down into my notes. I just saved the post alone to go back and revisit. Now, here is where the cool story happens, because I'm not going to say who it was, but I will tell you this. I inquired a publicist about a band that I wanted to collab with. The publicist responded back, asked me to pitch the show to him. It was such a cool experience, but then he politely declined and said that due to their crazy schedule right now, it's just not something that they could really commit to right now. Whether he was bullshitting me or not, I don't care. I don't take rejection that personal. I completely understand. And also, they are a very well-established band. So a lot of bigger bands, they don't necessarily need the press, right? They're not in a desperate need for a feature on a show, etc. So whether he was bullshitting me or not, don't care. This is a cool moment that happened though. Shortly after he declined the show on behalf of the band, he sends me a follow-up email that says, hey, I've got this artist that I think would be great for your show. Are you interested in collaborating with him. I kid you not, you guys, it was Umasuma. And I got the photo, I got the name, and I'm like, why does this look so familiar? So I go to my Instagram, I go back and look at all the posts that I save when it comes to like music or potential people I want to invite on. And I kid you not, it was him. It was the trippiest thing ever. It was almost like it was meant to be. And sure enough, I love the episode we did together. I love his project. And just this morning, I caught him live while he was DJing on the Lot Radio in New York City. So it really just did become a very amazing and special alignment. And again, it's one of those things where you can't explain it. There's no explanation to it. Sometimes these magical moments are just truly meant to be. The following week, I aired an episode with Tokyo Police Club, and let me just tell you guys why this episode was so special to me. I do love their music, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm their biggest fan because I would be lying. I truly invited them on because I know that my brother listens to me on a weekly basis, and this is his favorite band. So even though I do love their music, I'm not their biggest fan. It never really crossed my mind to collaborate with them. However, my brother, who also has a podcast, shout out to From the Concrete, on one of his episodes, they talked about this farewell tour that they were going on and how he was just kind of sad that that band was coming to an end. So immediately I was like, you know what? How cool would it be if, as his big brother, I go and do a special episode with them and I ask them questions inspired by my brother, his name, his favorite songs, etc. I manifested the whole thing in my head before I found emails and shot my shot. Super fucking crazy, you guys, because again, you just can't make this shit up, right? They also happen to be under the publicist that's under Timo and the other band that I inquired. So that was just one crazy coincidence. But two, it turned out to be the coolest experience ever because I was able to honor my brother and do this episode that I totally created in my head and saw it through before I inquired them. Now, the booking process was not the easiest because they're a huge band. They're super busy on tour, but this also gave me a lot of time to really think, holy fuck, this is actually a really big win for my catalog anyway, because I work with a lot of bands, I work with a lot of musical artists, and they've been nominated for Juno Awards. They have performed at Coachella. They've done so much, they've been on the David Letterman. They have had so many accomplishments that now when I pitch to other artists, I get to kind of brag on the success of Tokyo Police Club and use that as a way to entice them as to why it's appealing to come on my show. It's not just viewership, but it's for this reason. And so that just made it a huge win for me. And if the wins weren't enough, they fucking comped me tickets to go to their concert here in Austin, which originally I was not planning to go, but I had such a very cool conversation with my partner who was like, you know what? Not every day you get to be the cool brother. And so that was such a really cool reminder for me to be like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Let me just clear my schedule and make it happen and attend. And I ended up taking my sister with me because they put me on the guest list for a +1. And again, another fun moment that happened was my sister was like, who's the opening band? And I'm not even going to try to say who they were because I'll fuck up the name. However, I am going to be asking them to come on because I absolutely loved their performance. So I'm going to put that out there now, manifesting with you all, and if they decline, then let's just forget about this part, okay? But my sister was like, oh my gosh, I used to listen to them in high school. This is so cool. I didn't know they were going to be opening for them. So it just turned out to be another special moment. And on top of it, it was such a fun, nostalgic moment for me and my brother because he and I used to go to a lot of concerts together. And back when he was in school, I actually used to go and sign him out so that he could leave school early so we could go catch shows in Austin. So it was just really nice to do that again as adults. What a special moment to be able to do this with his favorite band, a band I did an episode with, and also it's their farewell tour. So they're no longer going to be a band. So this was just incredibly special. Here's a video of my brother's wholesome reaction to when Tokyo Police Club took the stage. It's a smile that's engraved in my head and a memory I will cherish forever. Sorry if this is embarrassing, brother. I love you. And also shout out to my brother's co-host Dill, who I messaged on Instagram the second I confirmed an episode and a date to record with Tokyo Police Club, because I was like, listen, I don't want to make this too obvious. Can you please find out what are his favorite songs, because I'm going to use them on the episode. So when I tell you it takes a tribe, and I've said this before, now more than ever, I am truly understanding, especially in this industry, what it really does mean to have a tribe. And when they say it takes a village, it takes a tribe to be able to have success. So thank you to Dill. Thank you to my brother for not thinking it was lame and corny, and hopefully I didn't embarrass you, but I had so much fun on the episode, and it turned out to be one of my favorite episodes ever. The way I fumbled and stuttered and kind of made a complete ass out of myself on the episode was so much fun. So it'll go down in the books as one of my favorite episodes for sure. Following Tokyo Police Club was Sean O'Reilly, because guess what? He was someone that Charlotte Martin talked about on our second episode together, and it just sparked some interest in me to go onto social media and visit his Instagram. So after that episode with Charlotte Martin, I immediately went onto social media, did some more snooping around on Sean O'Reilly, immediately felt inspired and inquired him about doing an episode together, but immediately I knew I wanted to put the bug in his ear to do the cover of Fade Into You. And to this day, you guys, get on social media, get online, get on YouTube, get on fucking Google, okay? You cannot find a cover like Fade Into You like the one Sean O'Reilly did. I cannot brag enough about how special that was to me, because he has such a unique voice. He's got a very classical rock type of voice. He's got such a rock and roll crisp to his voice, uniqueness to his voice. And immediately I was so inspired, and I was like, hey, would you want to do this song? He loved the idea, and you guys, it made magic. I absolutely love it so much. And once again, this is my way of telling you guys, please shoot your shot with whoever, with whatever it is that you want, whoever you want, because this is truly how magic is made. When we take leaps of faith into the unknowns, when we do things that don't make sense to us yet somehow make sense, that is how magic is made. So I encourage you all to do that. It made for such a fun episode. And speaking of another fun episode, I can't talk enough about Sophia Warren and talk about true nostalgia, because we talked about Serendipity, which is my favorite holiday movie. I have watched that movie probably 100,000 times. It is the movie that introduced me to Annie Lennox and her music. I have been a huge fan of her ever since. And once again, it was something that was not planned to talk about that movie, which is how the episode also got its title. I can't say any more good things about this episode with her other than the nostalgia is real, and definitely go check it out. I said I wasn't going to say that again, but I did. Oops. I don't know what I'm doing, honestly. Okay. And also, fun fact about this episode with Sophia Warren, we did talk about Empire Records, and of course we did some music listening to Empire Records soundtrack, but something I've never told anyone other than my siblings is that months and months ago, early on in the show, I confirmed an episode with Coyote Shivers, who is one of the artists and actors in the movie Empire Records. He sings my favorite song on that track called Sugar High. It is my favorite. If you've never listened to it, go stream it, because it will hype you the fuck up. I love it so much, and every time I listen to this record, I think of my Uncle Pablo, who introduced me and my siblings to this movie, and then my mom loved the movie. So it's just a very nostalgic soundtrack to me, but this song is my absolute favorite, and I wish there was the Renee Zellweger version on Spotify, because I would stream that shit every single day. If you know, you know. But anyway, I don't know what happened. We never aired an episode together, and maybe one day in the future we will. We still follow each other on Instagram, but this was a really cool moment for me, because I wrote him on Instagram before I really knew what I was doing, and he was just like, hey, I love that you were wearing a Ramones shirt. Let me follow you back on Instagram. Let's stay in touch. But who knows, maybe one day in the future we will collab together. We'll see. So as you guys can tell, there's always so much more to tell, so much more context to these episodes and how I inquire them, the in-between, the process, and everything that goes with one episode, which is why I enjoy these solo episodes so much. And something that I have been dying to talk to you guys about, and something I haven't told anyone other than, of course, my immediate family, is about how Unshut at the 10-month mark got a couple of network offers. Big spoiler alert, they didn't work out, okay? I am still not with a network. I am still completely independent and on my own. However, I'm going to leave this here as a teaser for my next solo episode because I do think this will make a great topic for me to go and talk to you about why didn't it work out with the networks, and we can talk about contracts and talk about some shit that I didn't think I would want to talk about. But full disclaimer, I am not under any NDA, so I am truly at full liberty to talk about this. So hopefully this is enough of a little bit of a teaser for you guys to sit at the edge of your seat or whatever it is that you call it and look forward to my next solo episode because I'm going to be spilling the tea. So with that being said, I hope you all have an amazing week. I'm not going to say happy Thanksgiving yet because I have a weekly quickie coming up on Thursday. So stay tuned for that. Hey, if you've made it this far, don't forget to follow the socials on the screen or in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. See you next week.